What's up? What's up? What is up? It's another Friday, another opportunity to bring you sports, business, and entertainment. And we only do it one way: rough, rugged, and raw. Welcome to the Ball Hawk Sports Talk with your boy B Brown, ESQ, aka the Ball Hawk, aka the Mouth of the South, aka Mr. Excessive Celebration, aka Breezy. A brand new year. Same old funk. We about to do it, man. The whole crew will be with us. The Ball Hawk Sports Talk crew will be with us. I'm glad you're here for the first Friday of 2022. And today's episode is entitled Full Circle because, simple and plain, it feels like we have come full circle. Rudy Gobert, in sports news, contracted COVID. If you don't feel as though we are reliving 2020 all over again when you hear that news, then you are better than me because it certainly feels full circle. Full circle is a lot of our storylines today. The most strict definition of full circle, the meaning is through a series of developments that lead back to the original source, position, or situation, or to a complete reversal of the original position. Rudy Gobert getting COVID again feels just like that. But there's some other stories that you're going to love to hear about today. We're going to talk about AB, my cousin, and them. Antonio Brown. Some other riveting stories. Kyrie is back. And look, forget the teaser. Strap on your seatbelt. It's the Ball Hawk Sports Talk. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go. Wake up, wake up, wake up, and stay woke. Because this is the Ball Hawk Sports Talk with your boy, B Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South. This is the place where sports, business, and entertainment collide. And we're going to give it to you rough, rugged, and raw, so come get you a spoonful, like some grits with butter and salt. You know how we do it in the South, y'all. Make sure you do not get caught in your feelings. Strap on your seatbelt and enjoy the ride. Come on, let's go, 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 go. What's up, fellas? Happy 2022, baby. Yeah. How you doing, man? Y'all know who it is. It's the whole crew. You got my mans is in the building. ETP Ellis, the producer. What's up, man? How are you, my man?
I'm terrible. It's snowing. It's winter. Otherwise, I'm great.
Otherwise, you're great, man. You still got that Scrooge on your shoulder. I thought you was gonna brush that off for 2022, man. We talk about New Year's resolution. Today's episode is full circle. We gonna call it a New Year's revolution, baby. We've been all the way around 365 days, full circle, and yet the crew is still here, still looking handsome. I don't mind discussing our handsometivity.
Can't be denied. Cannot be denied.
Cannot be denied. And you know who else is in the crew? My man, the Big Flow
Man,
Show.
what's good, man? America? It's cold as I'm not even gonna use bad words, but it's cold here. It's below zero. In the next hour or two, we're supposed to get to zero, so we're gonna barbecue when it gets to zero because that's gonna feel warm compared to the 3 below I woke up to. So, not having a good start to my morning. So happy we can finally do the show to get this day started right.
Let's do it, man. So you got ETP Ellis, the producer in New Jersey, notorious for its inclement weather. You have my man, the Big Flow Show in Chicago, equally notorious, probably even more notorious for its bad weather. So much so they call it the Hawk, the Windy City. And you two gentlemen you have the audacity to complain about weather. Let me pull out my violin, man. The show must go on, man. It's cold, but we about to make it hot because we about to get in here and we open it up. We ain't gonna lollygag and ain't no warm-up line. We ain't about to transition. We open it up with yours truly, Antonio Brown.
Let's go.
In the building. Let's take the gloves off.
Should I take my shirt off?
Man, you might want to go ahead and take your shirt off, do some jumping jacks, wait to the end zone, however you want to do it.
I'm gonna dye my mustache. You're gonna
dye the mustache.
Oh, I forgot I used to get that thing. I might do that. I would have done that today.
This is not.
I would not do that.
Look. This is the story that keeps giving, guys. So, and I know that it's sort of like beating a dead drum. We're sick of talking about Antonio Brown because everybody talked about it all week. We're a little late in the news cycle because our show is on Friday. Although we were very tempted to hop in a little earlier, the story has developed, shall I say, like all Antonio Brown stories. If you know anything about the Brown family, my cousins and them, we know how to act a donkey. But my cousin Antonio Brown has taken it to new heights. His acting a donkeyism has, I think, broken the interwebs and the level of donkeyism that he has subscribed to. So the story has so many layers. The latest layer is more gossipy, but it is a story out there that allegedly, because that's where we are now. Allegedly, Antonio Brown, in the midst of all of this, broke team rules, snuck a particular young lady who, I don't know why, but they call her a Instagram model. That is now a career. Whatever. So an Instagram model allegedly snuck into the team hotel, had relations, and now says she has COVID. So there's the COVID aspect of it, and risking his teammates' livelihoods to contract COVID. There's the football aspect of it, that he was inches away from meeting a lot of his performance incentives. And there's the injury aspect to it, because he says because of his ankle injury, that's why he didn't want to go in. And then there's just the sort of the plain, buffoonery that has become Antonio Brown aspect to it. Big Flo Show, you tell me where we start, because there's so many layers. I don't know. So you get.
I mean, we should probably start with the football, and then we should get to the scrippers left at later. I mean, that got to be later in the show.
I said Instagram model. I ain't say nothing about no scrippers, man. Come on, man. It's 2022. We got to give people their proper designation so they can put it on LinkedIn. You can't put scrippers on LinkedIn. She is an Instagram model.
And so are most of the scrippers. But anyway, at the end of the day, that's
coincidence, man.
That's coincidence. Yeah, she's out there. I don't know. I mean, you hear the stories. You hear the stories about his injury. You hear the story about what Arians said. He said he was kicked off the team. He said he didn't quit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think anything justifies stripping down and acting an ass and walking off the field like that, no matter what the situation is. But you do kind of have to start wondering, like, was there pressure to play? Was he kicked off the team? Did they say you're done? How did it go? I don't know. I still think you got to keep your shirt on.
You got to keep your shirt on. All right. I like this description of that profession more than any. Relaxation therapist. You get the prize for best description. Let's get back to the football part. So from an injury standpoint, AB did not play on both practice both Thursday and Friday leading up to the game.
Mm-hmm.
But he did go through warm-ups. He did get clearance from the medical staff. And it seemed as though he was able to play. Bruce Arians, who I also had the pleasure, air quote, playing under when I was dabbling in that world. Bruce Arians was the quarterback coach, and then eventually he was like an assistant offensive coordinator at the time I was in Cleveland. And I know a lot of people that played for him. So I've got my own feelings about this. It seems as though when you look at it from an objective standpoint, two very emotional, personality strong people meeting in the back alley head to head. Bruce Arians, according to a letter that AB, my cousin, them released. Just the whole world is crazy now. You release statements on Instagram, but I digress. Says that Bruce Arians essentially gave him the chop signs, like, you're done here, get on out of here. Basically kicked him off the team at that moment. What do we think, outside of the decision to take his shirt off and throw his gloves into the stands and do the jumping jacks in the end zone, which is questionable, but I don't know if it's crazy. I don't know if it's crazy. If now knowing that Bruce Arians told him you're out of here, does that change your outlook on how outlandish the behavior was going into the locker room? Just the locker room. Going into the locker room at that moment, does it make it outlandish if indeed Bruce Arians told him you're done here?
So I don't think there's anything that would have been exchanged that would justify the spectacle based on being a professional. However, when I saw that, I'm sure a lot of people can agree, or at least have some level of sympathy, where they've been in a job where they absolutely wanted to walk out that way. Like, they totally wanted to take off their uniform, throw it in their face of their boss, and walk out.
I'm going to go one further. I bet there's someone listening right this second that when you said it had a flash of like, oh man, that does sound good. But go ahead. You're right.
So he's in some respects, he's a bit of an inspiration to many disenfranchised workers.
We're looking at this wrong. We're looking at this wrong. He's leading the movement.
He created a movement. So yeah, but look, you're a professional, regardless of the scenario. I think it's problematic. And it created a disruption in a way where there were so many things about that game. The Jets went for it and failed on 4th and 2. Brady leads them down to score a winning touchdown in less than a minute. It was a really interesting game. And then the rookie who picked off Tom Brady, his name is Eccles, took the ball that he picked off and got Brady to sign it after the game.
That's how you know it's 2022.
But we're not talking about any of this because the man took off his pads and skipped into the line and called his driver and went to the Nets game and then met up with some Instagram strippers.
All of that happened.
All that happened. This all happened in one experience.
In the first week of a new year, all of that happened. Right? In the city that some consider might be the center of the globe. That happened right there in New York City. Well, Jersey, technically. But right there in New York Jets.
The
sixth borough. But right there, it happened in front of all of us. And yet I still don't think it's too crazy. And here's why. Because I think it's an act of convenience when the NFL ranks want to say act like a professional. Because it is a dog-eat-dog world in every aspect of the game. There's very little corporate professionalism in terms of how the corporations treat their employees, the players, and vice versa, right? There have been so many exceptions, questionable behavior, domestic violence, different crimes, DUIs, where you get a second chance. And so I just think it's an act of convenience when people, especially in NFL higher ups, like to say, act like a professional. There's nothing from a corporate professional standpoint that ever happens with the NFL. So don't use it out of your convenience. Yes, it was weird that he took his shirt off, but players take their shirt off after games all the time.
Don't do that.
They do.
Don't do that.
How many times have you
seen in the middle? You saying after the game?
After the game. To him, it's after the game. His game was over.
Yeah.
By way of Bruce Arians.
But hold on. Disclaimer that's your cousin, and you also are a former receiver. So
don't make this about the diva, then, man. That's.
I just said you have commonality.
Hey, I understand the brother. Is all I'm saying is, look. Was it a spectacle? Yes, because he took his shirt off. It was so abnormal. But it's also abnormal to get air quote cut in the middle of a game. If he would have just left the t-shirt on, just took the pads off and ran in, I don't even think it would be that big of a deal. The additional part of taking the shirt off, throwing the gloves into the stands, doing the jumping jacks, which lasted all of 30 seconds. So the spectacle was
I thought his ankle was bad. How you do jumping jacks on a bad ankle?
You can have a bad ankle in terms of being able to go out there and run routes versus doing jumping jacks. Come on, that's the people that made.
Felt like if he knew that was going to be his excuse, he might want to limped off a little bit. You know what I mean?
I noticed a little bit of a limp. Man, it might be a cousin bias. I noticed a little bit of a limp.
That's that brown pimping he was doing. Yeah. But that was too much. The question is, if his ankle wasn't messed up, would they have cut him for it?
Well, I think that becomes now where the lawsuits are probably within arm's reach. Because if indeed he does have a medical diagnosis such that I think he said it was like a hairline fracture or some sort. He talked about the injury.
Ligament was supposedly torn.
Ligament, whatever it was. Right? If that's the case, and he feels as though he was unable to go out there and perform and do his job, there are protections that the collective bargaining agreement has in it. There's this union, this NFLPA, that allegedly, I'll definitely use the word when it comes to them, that allegedly is supposed to protect the interests of the player. Mm-hmm. So if indeed, he did go see a specialist, the most senior specialist at the same facility, healthcare facility that the team suggested he goes to, I think he has a strong argument for why he should not have been cut, because under the CBA, there are going to be, injury protections, and if indeed you are cut, there's got to be some injury grievance that pays you out. How far the litigation could go, because he was also within arm's reach of these incentives, these performance-based incentives that, if he's able to play the last game healthy, he probably gets those very easily. So I don't know how far the lawsuits reach, but I also think that the NFL, and particularly in this case, the Tampa Bay Bucks, is full of you-know-what. Bruce Arians is sort of a prick and would say in the middle of the game, "You're done here." And
he said he admitted that. Bruce Arians admitted that he said you're done, but he said that there's two counter arguments, right? One is AB saying he's too injured to play. The other is Bruce Arians saying that AB was mad he wasn't getting enough touches, which basically was tied to his incentives, and wouldn't go in and wouldn't go in the game. Yeah.
Right. Hence the ball hog sports talk. Ball hog, you're supposed to want the rock as a receiver. That's where ball hog come from. But go ahead. I digress. Go ahead.
So now it's a hearsay, or he said, she said, or he said, AB said, whatever you call it. And the difference is what does it matter which one is the story? Because at the end of the day, he basically punched the clock earlier than he was contractually obligated to punch that clock. And he did it in grand fashion. And the irony of it all is he made this spectacle, and Alvin Miller, one of our viewers, said it himself. He didn't even kneel for the anthem, so there was no value for the black people of the United States of America.
I don't know what you're talking about. You know how many black people looked at that spectacle? Like, you know how many times I wanted to walk off my job like that?
Home Depot ain't getting my presents tomorrow.
I'm out. What do you think about, and thank you all, guys, and I'll say this is a perfect time to say it. Please like, please comment, please share, tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anybody that you know, and please subscribe in both on our YouTube channel and whatever universe you choose to consume your podcast. Another one of our viewers, live viewers, and we appreciate you guys for the comments, because it's always helpful to have different viewpoints. My man Walt D, what's up, good bro? Says Bruce Arians denied it originally, and he did. In the interview that was most immediate after the game, you would have thought that indeed there was no discussion about an injury. You would have thought indeed that it was a psychotic episode. We all went right to mental health, because there's no way we thought that there was something in there that was precipitated and sparked by the Tampa Bay Bucks, because Bruce Arians sat up there and lied. He assassinated the man's character. He made him look like I don't want to use any derogatory terms when it comes to mental health illnesses, but he made him look like he deserved to be in a straitjacket. He did. Mm-hmm. Without any context, without any mention of an injury, he made him look like a straitjacket candidate. True or not true? Bruce Arians does not
say he has no idea why he did that is disingenuous. I mean, like, you know why he did it. You don't think he should have did it, but to say you have no idea what set him off is foul.
And I think this is where the pendulum is changing, because Bruce Arians, when I had the pleasure of playing for him, there was a one-sided microphone. It was a bully pulpit. The teams and the organizations could say anything about the players, and there was very, very little recourse for the players to be like, nah, but the only really recourse they had was to go through the NFLPA, which has historically shown that it doesn't really do much. But the media didn't want to hear it. But now the players aren't reliant on the media. They're not reliant on big media anymore. His media platform is his Instagram page. He got to tell his side of the story and utilize air quote media. Yeah. And so now Bruce Arians and the Tampa Bay Bucks and the NFL coaches and executives, they don't have a one-sided microphone.
They don't at all. But what I guess so, absolutely, right? Like the great democracy of media, he's able to put out his own message, and clearly he has learned and has secured a very solid publicist and crisis management team, because his statement was as good as I'm talking about his other contractor, his other independent contractors.
She could have got hired.
Crisis management.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So his that that is the best statement that he could have put out about it, right? It was a full narrative. It justified his position. All that to say, it's Swiss cheese for this specific reason. The Bucks came out and said that he never even got tended to by the medical staff before the game. So he was cleared to play. He was activated. He never went into any evaluation throughout the game. And as a result, how is he going to say if he's going to say I'm not ready to go, shouldn't the team or the medical staff have some input into that concept?
I think that there's a clear conflict of interest that has existed since the beginning of a time when it comes to a medical staff that is dependent upon the team, gets their paycheck from the team, that is also charged with allegedly, hypothetically, theoretically, rendering objective medical advice to someone that is under the same care of that team, that is dependent on that player going out and producing. So there's a clear conflict of interest at all times. But I think it's even clearer here because now there's another layer to it, which is the communication and the PR aspect of it.
But so that you're absolutely, I fully agree with what you're saying. But to not even approach them, because he could disagree with whatever they say and say, I'm not ready to go in. I don't feel right. But he didn't even approach the medical staff. The medical staff never even evaluated him to give their biased conflict of interest opinion. So he just said, and he has a track record, which is to his deficit of basically just being very individualistic and kind of doing whatever he wants to do off the cuff. So all I'm saying is if he had gone to the medical staff and said, my ankle's done, I'm out, and they had to have a debate about it, he would have a much literally and figuratively stronger leg to stand on.
Got it.
So one of our viewers, Alex. Hey, Alex, thanks for watching. I know first time seeing you out there. Asked the question. I want to shout out. If he was too hurt to play, then how could he say that he wasn't healthy enough or he wasn't getting enough targets? The question is, has that been corroborated by somebody, or has that been a rumor?
The Bucks. That's Arian's statement. Is that
he wanted more targets?
He wanted more targets.
And then there's also rumored that he wanted not only the incentives that he had in the contract, but he wanted some guarantees, and he tried to advocate for those guarantees. I think it was $2 million worth of guarantees prior to the game. Now, these used to be stories that at one point, if the Tampa Bay Bucks came out with these stories, AB's done, because it was such a one-sided bully pulpit. It's changed now. I played for Bruce Arians in Cleveland, and I remember I'm struggling. I told you guys, there's 53 men on a roster. I was 53 and a half. I was always 1 foot in, 1 foot out, trying to hold on to a job. Bruce Arians, our personalities didn't really vibe very well. You know what I mean? He's a good coach, but he's always, there's a lot of personality issues that go on in locker rooms that people have no idea about. And, I made a great play in camp, and when you're 53 and a half and you're fighting for a spot, every time you make a play, you want to highlight it. Just so happens that he didn't like my split or something he was talking about. And because he had mentioned that to me before, when we got to that play in film, he fast forwarded right past it. I wanted to whoop his you-know-what that day because I need people to see me making plays. Why do I share that story? And there's been several stories. I talked to a few of my boys that played for him when he was coaching with the Steelers. I think that's when he was the offensive coordinator. And one of them said, I had to go in his office one day and say, man, look, bro, you talk to me like that again, I'm going to put my hands on you. There's several stories that aren't as public. And there are several coaches and executives. When you talk about personality issues, being narcissistic, being jerk human beings, we're all focused on AB and not focused on the other players when it comes to this whole saga. And now that we have a situation where players have their own media outlets, their personal social media that they can go put stuff out on, I think the truth is being told a little more holistically. Is AB without fault? No. Because you gotta act a certain way. It's like, bro, we can't be out here acting like you know what I'm saying? They already think we some. Don't be out here acting like you were confirming suspicions and all the stereotypes by acting that way. We all had that moment when we initially saw AB. Like, I know he ain't out here acting a damn fool in front of all these people. But the truth of the matter is that there might be a little more substance to it, and it was provoked. It was a provocation that isn't being discussed. Yes, AB needs, I think, counseling. Yes, I think AB needs to grow up and mature. But the truth of the matter is that he might not be alone. There are some people that make decisions in the NFL. There's some coaches, there's some executives that are just as narcissistic, just as problematic in their behaviors, just as inconsiderate when it comes to treating human beings a certain way. But we ain't discussing that right now.
But you just lose fans and you lose the side of the story when you do something that people consider to be outlandish. Granted, he acted out and he was upset. He might have had reason to do it. But, you know, just like if you go on the basketball games and you see somebody go in this crowd and punch a guy in the face, and then you find out later that the guy said something really terrible. At the end of the day, it's like, well, there's no justification for it. And I think AB's behavior goes under, in most people's minds, I know we had one viewer said he was glad he walked off. It goes under the category of you just can't do that, right? Doing the jump jacks, walking across the field during the game, although a little bit more was made of that than it was. You just lose the support and the fans of everybody. Maybe that's what he wants to do. He's like, all right, if I'm not going to get my way, I'm going to ruin it for everybody. But nobody likes that. I mean, you're trying to watch a game. As you mentioned, all those great things happen in the game. And to be honest with you, I missed that the game. So I didn't know any of the things that Ellis had mentioned about the interception and the guy getting the ball, all that stuff that people pay to see. All that's gone because you took your shirt off and you walked off the field. If you had just jogged into the locker room without doing the extra sideshow, look at me stuff, maybe people could have been like, oh, whatever. You know what I mean? I was hurt. You could have a story. It's hard to come back now with the story about you cut me and that's why I acted like. We watch people in Hard Knocks all the time get cut and act very professional when they get cut. And so
there's a pecking order. People have more leverage based on the skill set that you bring to the table. And some might argue that they should have never given them a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chance because they've enabled them. I say this because the only reason Ellis saw it is because we in the local market. You know what I mean? Like when we first got that game, I'm thinking, man, I can't believe we got the Jets game. No idea that I was going to see what I saw. Right. There's no way I thought that. So it was so out of the realm of normal. But I don't think to me, it's not that problematic what he did. I think that AB needs an intervention in the sense that, bro, you can feel certain ways, you can have certain emotions, but how you carry yourself has long-term implications. And you're hurting your bag, not only your immediate bag and getting that $1 million performance incentives, but you're hurting your larger bag because now because of who he is and how he's acted, there is a question. Will he ever be in the Hall of Fame? Now, because of who he is and how he acted, statistically, he's undermined his own statistical output. Now, because of how he's acted and how people have seen him, his post-career career has probably suffered. AB is a natural to be on TV because you never know what's going to come out of his mouth. A la Warren Sapp, a la Keyshawn Johnson, a la Michael Irvin, a la Randy Moss. All the guys that were divas and had issues on the field, off the field when it came to the media consuming them, went on to have great media careers. And AB is hurting that. So I think that's where the intervention is. I don't know if it's so much about, just listening to what Coach Arians says and saying, yes, sir, Coach Arians, because there needs to be a mutual respect. And if Coach Arians said, you're out of here, maybe AB felt like the necessity to have a mutual respect had been compromised. And I'm not making an excuse for him. All I'm saying is it's been compromised on both sides, and we're only hearing about it from one side. Let me ask you guys this, because there is go ahead, ETP, before I ask the next question. Go ahead. It sounds like you want to control.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask this because we, the community, and I say the community because we all happen to be Black on this show. There seemed to be, I think, a rush to judgment even more when it came amongst us. In the barbershops, if you went to the barbershop between his behavior and today, you'd have known that there was just an onslaught of people saying, man, AB, this. Right? It's just really riding him. An onslaught of people saying that, he really does have mental health issues. Maybe he does have CT. I don't know. That's something that none of us know. CT is something that people can confirm, after you die. So we don't know. When they check your brain, that's how you know whether or not CTE truly existed. Behavioral changes could suggest that you have CTE, but we don't know for a fact. Did he owe us anything? Because we talked about him taking a knee, but look how quick our own community, we threw him to the
Don't
wolves
say quick though. Don't say
man,
quick.
it was quick, bro. It
Well,
was quick.
Okay.
hold
So
on.
you're ignoring all the fact when he threw furniture out of a high-rise building.
No. Specific to
You
this.
can't be.
Well,
specific
you can't divorce the pattern of behavior.
Yeah, you can't. When he sat on his thing, yelling at the police and yelling at his, I don't know if it was the mother of his child or whatever, going crazy. This is a pattern of behavior that if Tom Brady did what he did, obviously for a lot of reasons, people be like, "Oh man, let's look into this. This isn't Tom's thing. This is Tom Brady, whatever." But Tom Brady has not done craziness like this.
Fair. You're saying the past behavior. You're saying
absolutely.
The past behavior caused everyone to analyze this particular incident.
Yes.
So intensely.
Dennis Rodman,
maybe, but
kicking the cameraman, right? Oh, well, the cameraman hit him with the camera. Oh no, well, Dennis Rodman does crazy stuff all the time. This is just the latest.
Fair.
And you look at all the chances that he had. You look at the fact that Tom Brady brought him back. He was out of the NFL. They brought him back. People had forgotten all of the stuff. Just act right for a little while, and people will ride with you, right? We're so forgiving and so supportive, but then you do something we've never seen before.
Yeah. I mean,
I guess, man. I just feel as though, look, and I don't think anybody owes anybody anything when it comes to that. My thing is take care of you and yours, but I have seen what looks to me is disproportionately when I'm on my media outlet, social media. It's been our own folk that have been throwing him under the bus, shorty. And I'm like, wait a minute. At least let's let the facts come out. I'm not saying that after the facts, right? Now, when more facts have evolved, if you want to ride on him hard, cool. But I mean, before he made a statement, before we knew the gist of what had happened, people threw him under the proverbial bus. Is all I'm saying. And it's been predominantly
and he brought that. I think his actions opened himself up to that criticism because he has a pattern of behavior of being a spectacle, being a distraction. I mean, we didn't know if he was ever going to play in the NFL again, probably 4 times in the past 3 years because of his actions. So the fact that we're looking at it, and the problem is he could be 100% right. He could be fully justified. He could be protecting his health. He could be, he could have been fully disrespected. The problem is he is representing himself in a way that throws more than a shadow of a doubt into all of that. And so they have a team. He's the one putting out all of this spectacle. I mean, he's Instagram live from the car while the game's still going on. It's crazy. It's crazy. But I think all that to say, the other part of it to me is I'm really kind of I guess I'm disappointed in the fact that people will continuously be these armchair psychologists of, oh, AB has CTE or AB has mental health issues look, at the end of the day, if you think he was justified in what he did, then yeah, he has a mental health issue. Somebody injured his mental health and he justifiably reacted, and he just reacts in a different way. But if you think he's just crazy and you're not authorized, especially as a fan, as somebody watching this on TV, we don't know these people. How are we going to sit here and evaluate their mental state in a technical way? We could say yeah, that's out of character or that's inappropriate. But why are we as casual viewers of these entertainers turning around and saying, you know what, that's CTE. He's got bipolar. That person suffers from anxiety.
Because we all
this
have
one
has
yeah, we're all WebMDs.
WebMDs and look, AB to me acted like this entire time, even that ordeal, how outlandish it might be to you, AB acted like AB. And that's where, for me, I think it's out of convenience. that these teams take issue with someone's very clear and consistent personality traits. AB, right or wrong, is one of those people that feels as though once disrespected, once you take away that mutual respect bond, then all bets are off. I'm gonna act a fool. And he's done that. And this sport, whether you like it or not, several sports, but especially the NFL, this sport doesn't have the same behavioral protocols that we have in our corporate jobs. We just
Absolutely.
don't. The more outlandish and risky and crazy you are, and I put air quote crazy, not clinical crazy, the better. The truth of the matter is, although we are divas, as a wide receiver, to go across the middle and still put your hands out, knowing that a safety is about to knock you out, takes a certain level of crazy. The truth of the matter is, position agnostic. It doesn't matter which position. To put those pads on and put yourself out there in harm's way and subject yourself to contact takes a certain level of crazy. It takes a certain level of aggression. It takes a certain level of all of the things that make you a good football player. Unfortunately, when put together without some checks and balances in place, without some real strong personalities and good people that truly love you around you, you'd be like, hey, bro, you can't, here's out of bounds. Without those things, you get what we saw with AB. I'll give you final word on the Big Flow Show before we move on, man.
One of the viewers, Anthony, was it Anthony?
That's my guy, Anthony. Which one?
The one that just Anthony had the comment with Anthony Allen. Sorry, Anthony Allen.
Yeah,
he had said
that was my safety. You talk about crazy. That was my high school safety.
I'm not going to talk about him because I don't know him like
people
that.
Out. I don't mean crazy in a mental health way. I mean
crazy in a good way. See what I'm saying?
He was the crazy that you're talking about that's needed in football. That's my guy.
Yeah. But my comment on that is like, there's a strict difference. He's saying we think he's crazy because he cared about his health. You're telling me the only way to express yourself, to care about your health, is to take your shirt off, take your pads off, do jumping jacks on an ankle that we're supposed to believe isn't working in the end zone. That was, or just don't go in the game.
That's not the only way. That's the AB way, Big Flo.
But that's not the AB way. Is not okay.
Why not?
The AB way is not okay.
Why not?
Because it hasn't worked for him. It hasn't worked for him. The AB way is the way where he throws furniture out of his high-rise building into a pool where he could have killed people. That's the AB way. That's not okay. It's not okay. That's the reason why he's on the sidelines now. People are not going to accept that, right? So I just think that I get it. I like that he's exposing the story, and because sometimes we need to find out what the real dirt is, and I think too many things get swept under the rug. And maybe in his mind, in his own jaded way, he thought, well, if I don't do this, no one's ever going to hear the story about how I got mistreated. But if I act a fool, I'm going to bring light on it. Because he just said after the game.
So what if that was his theory? I love that you just put that out there. What if that is his theory? If I would have just stayed on the sideline and then the cameras keep panning over to figure out why I'm not in the game, walk off the field, shake everybody's hand, go into the locker room and get cut on Tuesday like everybody else, no one knows the real story. What if that is what he considers justifiable rationale for why his behavior was the way it was?
I'd say he need to be raised differently. Then that's just how he justifies himself. That's all.
Put on the man upbringing.
I'll put it on your mama, man. AB.
Put on the man upbringing.
I'll put on your upbringing.
Who raised right? Man, who raised you? Hey, look, I think AB is going to be, when it's all said and done, is going to be more than a footnote when it comes to how we analyze these situations, how we analyze injuries and the players' approach to those injuries, and what the backlash could be on both sides. Because I don't necessarily think he was that wrong. I would have walked off differently, but I probably would have never.
Ellis, make sure you don't cut Bobby from the show.
Yeah, don't cut me from the show. Like, you out of here. Hey, but this is I would have walked off differently. But I also would never have dyed my mustache blonde. I would have walked off differently, but I would have also never painted my car black and yellow. He's an extreme personality that has been extreme. AB go AB.
But I guess this is the question.
Right. Florida and me might got
this is the ultimate question. Does he play again?
Probably.
I don't think he wants. Here's where I think the evil genius is in AB. I don't think he wants to play again. I think what he wants to do, because he made a statement during the game, the whole Uber, waiting on Uber and being a spectacle, it is what it is. The thing that stood out most to me about the AB story that not a lot of people have discussed when it comes to the major network platform, media platforms, is this simple but powerful statement. Football is what we do, not who we are. And if it wasn't for probably his need to continue getting that check, he would have been long gone and done with football. He's an eccentric personality. He realizes in this social media world, that itself has its own value to it. Business is booming. In his mind, I think he probably would have been long gone for football. I'm not sure that he wants to play football again. I'm not sure he wants to subject himself to these rigid rules that in his mind seem unfair because they're one-sided.
Those things are not mutually exclusive, because I would say he definitely wants to play and he definitely doesn't want to follow any rules. So that's basically what he's been doing for the past 3 years. But I think Jerry Jones is on the phone right now.
I think if he could survive throwing the furniture off the whatever his
that wasn't on the field though. Big Flo Show. This is he now contaminated the sacred space that is a game, nationally televised, all the cameras, all the fans in the stand. He kind of violated the sacred space.
It was bad. What he did was crazy, but at the end of the day, who cares? I mean, like,
I like that. He gonna fight Jake Paul. Who wins? AB versus Jake Paul. Who wins?
Oh no, I think I go AB because he's not gonna take that when he does a little fist thing. AB's not gonna drop his hand. He's gonna be like, nope, keep. But I think if he survived what he survived, in the grand scheme of things, we think this is crazy. But he didn't. It was no victim, right? It wasn't like he took a knee. It wasn't like he. The
NFL will argue that the victim is the NFL's.
Yeah, but thank you. This is in the grand scheme of things. Think about outrageous things people have done. If it wasn't for all of his past behavior, this was tacky and whatever. He didn't flick the fans off. He didn't. I thought he was going to get butt naked. To be honest with you, I thought it was going to come all the way.
I think he considered it because he did look down at his pants. Like,
he thought about it. He was like, "I didn't shave today. I'm straight.
It's cold out here. I don't want the shrinkage to be."
Yeah. So I don't really think what he did, as bad as it was, no one is mad at him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that. I think if he can do whatever, if he can come back to the other stuff he did, I think he'll be fine with this. He'll be back.
I think you're right. Like, no, he saved his career, or he kept the door open for his career in the way that he handled the post-event communication. Like the everything that he put out, his team was like, we're gonna at least save you an opportunity to play in the NFL. If he had said nothing after he got in that car and disappeared, he's never playing again. If the narrative was run by the Bucs or by the NFL, he's done. But he took advantage of his platform and I think saved his career.
Hey, look, man, I'm not saying this just because he's my cousin and them. He's a likable dude in this weird way. Even putting himself on the social media thing, I think it was TikTok or something with the Uber driver. He's at the Nets game the next Monday, just completely aloof that the whole world, this whole media spectacle is focusing on him. He's just like, he's a likable dude in a world that wants us to act a certain way, say a certain thing. We hit over the last 2 years through, and I call the whole uprising of social justice. I call the cell phone the MVP. I've called it that on this show. The same thing is true when it comes to the leverage of the player in a world that where they want you to just get in line and act a certain way, despite the fact that they will cut you over nothing. Despite the fact that you have no job security, despite the fact that they have been trying to figure out ways to not pay these brothers who indeed had CTE verifiable, despite the fact that if you tried to file for disability, the NFL would hire a private investigator to follow you around and make sure indeed that you are disabled. Like that's not a model organization. Roger Goodell has not found a single penny on earth that he doesn't like. That's not a very deep and
all money, good money.
It's a soulless corporation that has devoured the employees that sacrifice literally their life to build the value in it. So don't dismiss me with all of the whole he should act a certain way. Ain't nothing professionally corporate from a corporate standpoint, ain't nothing professional about the NFL. It is a gladiator sport run by Neanderthals, run by people who don't care at all. You talk about whether or not Nike makes their shoes in a sweatshop. If you look at how they treat their employees, there's nothing positive about what the NFL does. Yet I thank you guys for the check. I do thank you for the opportunity to start my life.
Even a Neanderthal wears a shirt.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I think he survived. I think he survived
it too, man.
Yeah, I would like him to play for the Bears. Who cares? That's the least of our problems with the shirt. He'll never take his shirt off in Chicago winter, so we ain't got to worry about that.
Let's move because we got a few things, man. You guys continue to like, comment, share, tag a friend, tag a phone. Please subscribe both our YouTube channel and wherever you consume your podcast. We're gonna come back a little bit at the end, and literally we will make sure that we try to respond to all the comments. So please comment if you got any more AB. Antonio Brown or Bruce Arians. Let's put him in there too. BA and AB in this full circle episode. That there is a palindrome. ABBA. Any comments, continue to share them. But we got to move on. Let's talk about the previous team that he played for, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And NFL news, because everything else has been second page. It's been on the second page. It's been all about AB. But in other NFL news, Ben Roethlisberger probably played his last game in Pittsburgh. The fans showed him the utmost love. Ben Roethlisberger's career has been simultaneously, it's been on a parallel track with another man, Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin, in last week's win, confirmed that in 15 seasons, he will have never had a losing season. Now, he made it a little safer this year because he had a tie. But in 15 years, never a losing season. We, on this show, have talked ad nauseum who should get the credit for the Belichick-Brady run. Who should get the credit for the Mike Tomlin, Ben Roethlisberger run?
Defense.
Oh, you punted.
AB for 5,000.
AB for 5,000.
Yeah, James Harrison.
I'm going Mike Tomlin, man, because even when Ben Roethlisberger was hurt, he's been hurt a lot, but the season when he was hurt more games than not. If you look at the roster that Mike Tomlin figured out a way to win with, one of the best accomplishments in all of football. I'm going Mike Tomlin. Shout out to Mike Tomlin. Shout out to all the Kappas and celebrated 111 years yesterday, right? Or 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I think Mike Tomlin's a Kappa, man. I'm going Mike Tomlin for the win. He should get the credit for that run, but no disrespect to Big Ben. Big Ben had a heck of a career, man. So shout out to him. I know if you guys want to weigh in before we move on to a few more NFL.
I'll ride with you. I'll say Tomlin as well. I mean, Ben has been in and out of injury for a good portion of his career. So to maintain, keep the ship steered in the right direction for such a long period of time, and for him to be able to withstand, like you said, the toxic NFL, to be a black man in a position, coaching, being successful in one of the most storied franchises, like that's no small task. And he's been able to deal with criticism. He's been able to deal with all of the, the turmoil and have the trust of the Rooney family. And, with this is he's the fourth coach they've had in 60 years.
Go black man, go black man, go. Yes.
So, fourth or third?
I thought it was fourth, but it very well might be. They had Cower was there for trying to do math. Don't make me do math publicly. It's been a long time though. Ain't been a lot of them.
Yeah, we've had more coaches with the Bears this decade than they've had in their inception. So I'm going to give the shout out to the ownership because of what you just mentioned. There's been many times where they could have gone away from Ben Roethlisberger and they stayed with him. There's been many times where he went out of pocket, and I think that Tomlin probably would have slapped him and got him up out of there or gave him the Bruce Arians, and he didn't do it. And I think the ownership is just about stability and longevity, and I think that his career, where he has had some really highlights in it, they sat with him through some tough years and some tough times where Ben Roethlisberger really didn't deliver, and they let him do it. So shout out to the ownership for sticking with him.
As a Browns fan, I hate to admit that you are right. They have done a great job of running that organization, and that's the last positive word that I'll ever say about the Steelers. Let's move on, man, because there's another team in that division that I happen to subscribe to, the Cleveland Browns. And I changed my Baker touchdown maker to Baker headache maker, man. I think it's time to move on from Baker Mayfield. I guaranteed on this show that he was my quarterback. We were going to go not deep into the playoffs, but we were going to be a Super Bowl team. And I got to admit that I was wrong. And I got to admit that I was wrong largely because of a man that wears the number 6 that goes by the name of Baker that ain't baking nothing. He out there just making horrible decisions. I know that there's an injury this year, but this particular Browns fan is saying right here on the show, Ball Hawk Sports Talk on January 7th, the first Friday of 2022, it's time to move on. At the end of the day, everybody gets a limited amount of opportunities. Baker, you are no longer the touchdown maker in this man's eyes. Baker, you're the headache maker. You're a headache for your receivers. You're a headache for your offense. You're a headache for your team. You're a headache because you don't understand how to be accountable for your mistakes and focus on the football. You talk about divas. Baker probably should switch to receiver. He's got divadom in his DNA. He's on every commercial known to mankind. That normally requires you to put up some numbers like Aaron Rodgers. Instead, Baker, you've gotten it the old-fashioned way because of some form of privilege that you do not deserve. It's time to move on from Baker Mayfield. I said it here. Get mad at me if you want, Browns faithful. But at some point, man, if we keep on coming up short and we run out of people to blame, it might be the quarterback. And I'm at that point where it ain't might be. It's absolutely the quarterback. We've run through different receivers. We've gone like, look at how many people have come and gone, and Baker is still making some horrible decisions on the field.
He blames the offensive coordinator. You see that? He came
He
forward
always
and said
blames somebody.
He came forward and said that if they don't start calling better play calling, he needs to be up out of there.
Well, let's go ahead and test that. Let's test this bluff because it's time for him to go, man. I had to get that off my chest so I could move on. All the other NFL news is second and third page, which is crazy because the AB news is so big. But one that we got to discuss just because it might happen. The Super Bowl might not be in LA. They're contemplating contingency plans. They've already canceled the Grammys in LA. In this full circle episode, COVID is taking over again. It'll be interesting because there's a lot of money on the line with tickets and plans. And so, the NFL did everything within its power to make sure that the LA market would reap some of the financial benefits of having, the two new teams. We'll see what COVID allows for. We got to get to NBA. And before we start NBA, we got to start with Kyrie. Kyrie is back. Sometimes. You saw him play this week on the road.
On occasion.
When they're playing away. When he's on the court, they're a different team. I mean, he's in complete control. He's a point god. He really is, man. The way he's able to control the offense, the way he's able to create his own shot, the way that he's able to facilitate, I think he's the perfect combination of scorer and facilitator. And, oh, by the way, he's got a handle that is second to none. Kyrie being back sometimes. Does that make the Nets the odds-on favorite to win it? I was going to say win it again. They did not win it last year. To win it this season.
It's tough to argue. He's fresh. He's going to get to the playoffs fresh. Maybe by then we'll be through this wave. I'm a firm believer that this Omicron is going to take COVID out because everybody has COVID now. The Lakers have proven that they're not the team to beat. I don't really know who's going to beat the Nets if they stay healthy. And the fact that he barely plays, I think he's going to be so fresh. I don't know. You got it. Odds on favorite. I don't know. Vegas probably not going to give you too much money against your money if you vote on them or bet on them.
Yeah. I don't know what the odds are now, but I'm assuming that they changed after Wednesday was his first game back. I should have checked Tuesday versus Wednesday odds. What do you say, ETPL is the producer? Seeing Kyrie play, I know that you happen to watch the game. You and I were texting back and forth. It is a poetry of motion watching him play. Did you get a feeling by watching him that, NBA in trouble?
I just have to, the first thing is everybody. I mean, Kyrie kind of has he's his own, unique personality and character, perception from the media standpoint as well. And everybody kind of talks about how, quirky he is. And there's always a question of how focused he is on the game. But the fact that he just walked back, put on a jersey, put on a uniform, walked into the game, started, played 32 minutes, and balled out of control.
His stats: 22 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 52.9% from the field against the Pacers.
Yeah.
But those are amazing numbers.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Lance Stevenson can come back on a 10-day contract, score 20 points in 6 minutes in the first quarter, and you're still talking about Kyrie Irving after not playing, didn't have a preseason tune-up, hasn't practiced with this team, and it's like he never left. Like, just that one game changes the whole perspective. It'd be hard for me to bet against him right now. I'm still taking the Bucks out of the East, but Kyrie looks
that's
good.
Betting against him. Hold on, they both in the East. Oh, that's betting.
No, I said it would be hard for me to bet against them, but I'm still taking the Bucks.
All right, man, they gonna win. But for another injury, they gonna win because their role players were playing a heck of a role before Kyrie came back.
Let's see though. Let's not go.
Yeah.
Scratch. I mean, as much as I was for it a second ago, that's one game. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens.
All right.
But I guess
I still think
performance
LeBron gonna get these boys together. He's gonna get these dudes in the fountain of youth and get them into the gym and get some. Anthony Davis's ankle's gonna get strong and he's gonna get some strength and something's gonna happen and they're gonna lose in the first round.
When his ankle gets stronger, I mean his pinky gonna get weaker. You called him Mr. Glass, so I'm just going off of what you said about it. I have no faith in the Lakers whatsoever. I would not make that bet with your money. I'm not betting your money with that, let alone my own money.
You're gonna get one of those shots that AB got to let him do jumping jacks on a broken ankle. You're gonna get one of them shots.
We didn't even get to that part, right? Them encouraging him to take something that could be harmful to his body in order to. We didn't even get to that. The AB story's got so many layers. We didn't even get to that part. But I ask you this because it's an odd thing in the NBA. Everyone's fighting to get the best record so they have home court advantage. But in this one instance, you almost want to have the lowest seed possible so you don't have home court advantage because Kyrie can only play in away games.
Yeah.
It's a new frontier, right?
Playoff comes, they might give him a special dispensation, let him play at the crib a couple times with a mask. Kyrie be out there, the only one in the NBA with a mask on.
Right. You're up 3-2 and you're going back home. You like, man, Kyrie, heck with that, man. We gonna give you some of this special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickle onions, and sesame bun. Big Mac. You gonna play
Rodgers shots with the natural oils and berries or something.
Straight up.
How do you feel about it as a teammate? Like, of course he makes them better, but how do you feel about that as a teammate to be like, he doesn't even show up half the time. He just
because he can't practice. I don't think
he can't practice with them.
Yeah, he can't be that's an indoor facility.
But he's practicing, or he's just that talented.
He's at the YMCA. He got next all the time. Let's go. He stay on the court the whole day.
Yeah. Kyrie, look, man, if you need some extra reps, come to the crib, man. I know you got jersey presence. come to the crib. You get your reps here. But he cannot practice in that facility, which is interesting, man. We'll see how it all plays out. But I think that Kyrie being able to step on the court and do what he does in away games only in any other year would be just outlandish. It's not going to happen. But in this particular year, it's not that outlandish because look at all the 10-day contracts. Look at all the transient players that are coming and going. So far, 580 different players have been on the court this season, and we ain't even halfway home when it comes to the NBA season. We got Lance Stevenson out there acting a donkey. Isaiah Thomas, we've talked about some of the prominent names, but there have been a lot of transient 10-day contract G League players coming to play and serving a role because the starting players or the roster, the normal roster, has been impacted and ravished by COVID protocol. So in any other year, it would seem strange. And this season, it don't even seem that strange because so many players just come and go.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Because there's so many 10-day contracts, it's like, fine. We'll sign a future Hall of Famer and arguably the best point guard in the league to 3 10-day contracts for the rest of the
A
season.
10-day contract is reserved normally for extreme situations, an untimely injury, right? 12 players on each team, 30 teams, it's about 360 players. We're at 580 and not even halfway through the season. So we'll see, man. And if you think of all time, right, only 5,000 players have ever stepped foot on an NBA court in history. Yet there's 580 players this season that have played. So it is really the NBA has become sort of hopscotch, man, in and out. You know what I mean? Go play for a little bit, get you some buckets. And what I love about a lot of these 10-day contracts, these dudes is getting on the court shooting the rock. They got the green light.
They're trying to get 11 days.
Like, I see the dude with the green light. Yo, who is that? I never heard of Buddy. But every game now, you say that once or twice. Like, who is that?
Mm-hmm.
That is the new.
Gonna turn that 10 into 82.
Straight up, baby. Get it in. I still haven't seen Jello, but it's gonna happen. Before the end of the year, Jello gonna make an appearance, and LeVar Ball gonna say, "I told you so."
I told you, never lost.
Never lost.
Never lost.
Great story because we have talked about.
That's the greatest tagline ever.
Never lost.
Never lost.
Never lost. And he said that on the heels of saying that he would beat Michael Jordan on one-on-one. Shout out to that brother, man.
The only time that's the only way to use it.
Right? Never lost. Yeah. So as a betting man, you're like, well, the odds say.
But did you hear how he said it?
So much
switched Vegas odds just shifted. Like, did you hear him say never lost?
All right, we got to sprint a little bit now, man, because we went long to AB story. Becky Hammond is a story worth talking about. We've talked about pay equity and why the professional athletes, when it comes to gender, it is more extreme than Mars and Venus, right? It's Mars and not even a planet when it comes to pay difference. Well, Becky Hammond is finally trying, I think, to bridge the gap. She had been rumored to be a favorite to take some of the NBA jobs. She's been a San Antonio Spurs assistant for the last several years. The Vegas Aces of the WNBA just gave her the bag, making her the highest paid coach in the WNBA. And still it's going to be a pay cut because she was making probably $750,000 a year coaching for the Spurs. Now she's going to take a pay cut. My question is this, man, because there are two things going on at once, right? We've got diversity issues when it comes to coaches, but now we also probably have gender issues. Which one is going to win this race? The tortoise versus the hare, which one's going to win this race? Because if gender becomes a factor when it comes to trying to round out your hires, then does race or diversity, because not diversity, let's say race, because hiring women is a part of diversity. But does now race become less of a factor in an NBA that is overwhelmingly black when it comes to the player ranks and underwhelmingly not black when it comes to the coaching ranks?
Yeah, I think the main issue is the pipeline, right? Like the diversity issue is a result of look at all of these athletes, players that come in and it's disproportionately black. But then as you move up the ranks into the coaching staffs and into ownership and management, obviously the diversity reduces or the not even diversity, the representation declines, falls off a cliff.
Right.
And so I think that needs to be addressed. I don't know how qualified Becky Hammond is to be a head coach compared to anybody else. So I don't have a strong perspective on that. I do know that the current pipeline of people that have been part of the organization of the NBA are not being represented and given the right opportunities. But what you are starting to see is with the younger players, a lot more emphasis is being put on former NBA players. Now, if they're white, like Steve Nash, or if they're black, like Chauncey Billups, either way, it's a lot of these younger players seem to be more responsive to young, experienced NBA experienced coaching. And if you're going to go down that path, yeah,
Becky Hammond would check all those boxes. Right?
She would check the WNBA. She doesn't have the NBA experience, but she's obviously one of the. I think she's a WNBA Hall of Famer, but she's got 16 years and all of that. But that being said, it's two different leagues. So NBA players want NBA experience.
Shameless plug, and I'm not her agent, but it just came to mind because Niele Ivey, who was the head coach of Notre Dame's women's basketball program, was also an assistant for Memphis Grizzlies. She checks all the boxes, baby. She played in the WNBA. We check the race box, and we can include some more racial diversity and gender diversity. So maybe we'll be looking at her as a potential head coach down the road in the NBA. The Big Flow Show, before we move on, anything you wanted to add to it? Becky Hammond finally gets her bag. Is this the first big step? Because I think now, and what her only knock was, and I guess it wasn't a big enough knock against a Steve Nash, but is that she didn't have any head coaching experience. I think she will be an NBA coach at some point. That's going to happen. Anything you want to add to it before we move on?
No, I would just say, when it comes to the whole equity, race thing, different things, I think NBA, compared to football, at least, I don't want to say all major sports, has more black coaches representation than they do in football. The equity, the gender thing, I feel like there should be more fluidness in that, because the women's game and the men's game are the same, except for the dunking, you know what I mean? But as far as I would argue, the women's game is more fundamentally sound than the men's game anyway.
Don't say that in front of ETP. He want to change the game to 3-on-3.
He want to do a pickup game. He want to do a game of 21.
Yeah, he wants
just stop being mad because I'm right.
We're just going to gloss right over that. So, it bothered me in football when I start seeing female coaches, because I don't feel like we have the representation with African-American coaches. And I feel like women have not played a part in football. So I don't know that they've waited their turn or had to do anything. So here we are in football, worried about giving women an opportunity when we still haven't answered the question about the people that made the sport, the African-American people that have played, get an opportunity. I don't have the same feeling in basketball, because women have played a major role in basketball, maybe not the NBA per se, but there's a experience level there or whatever. So I do like to see women get an opportunity, a chance. Other than the fact we can't do locker room stuff, then it's tough.
Hold on.
Fair point. Very fair point.
So
go ahead, ATP.
No, so Christian, one of our viewers, Christian, I can't pronounce the last name, I apologize. But Nancy Lieberman played in the NBA. Can we fact check this? Is this true?
I cannot fact check that at the moment, but
I don't know that the NBA had a woman to play in the NBA, but that would be a fun fact.
No, here's why I say so. So I'm going back to, again, I'm not her agent, but I would say Niele Ivey has the best chance, and this is why. We talk about LeBron James staying in the NBA long enough to play with Bronny. All right. The person who I'm talking about, not only as coach, as an assistant coach in the NBA for the Memphis Grizzlies, I think 2 or 3 years ago, prior to taking the head coaching job for Notre Dame's women's basketball. Not only did she do that, have the NBA coaching experience, she has played NBA basketball, so high caliber basketball. And then the last component of it, or two components, she's had head coaching experience, now playing coaching for Notre Dame. But her son is probably going to be a lottery pick. Right now, the NBA draft happened today. He's going to be a top 5 pick in the lottery in the NBA draft. So then she also has that leverage. Imagine if he goes on to be a great player, he has the most leverage. Like, I don't want you hiring Doc Rivers. Go hire my mama to be the coach. It might be the move, man. Y'all heard it here first. It's probably 5, 6 years, maybe 10 years away, but mess around and her son, Jaden Ivey, becomes an NBA superstar. And Jaden Ivey says, I don't want you hiring fill in the blank with one of the regurgitated coaches. Go hire my mama. That would be a play. That would be you know what? I gotta go. I need to be her agent. Let me change that. I need to be her agent. But other than that, it is interesting when it comes to NFL. You make a great point, Big Flow Show, when we still are, I believe, hemorrhaging when it comes to black coaches. We've got several candidates that are women coaches now. So it's very interesting times. In addition to that, I gotta get to this big bad NCAA. And this is where we're gonna end the show. Because the NCAA, at this point, we're going to talk about it in 2 phases. Let's talk about the college football playoff and a recap. You had 2 semifinals games. The first game between Alabama and Cincinnati, to me, I thought it was a pretty competitive game. I put that out there in the social media space that you can't just look at margin of victory, because although Cincinnati lost by 21, they were down by 11 going into the 4th quarter, and they had opportunities, right? Alabama had better athletes. The second semifinal game, which everyone thought was going to be the better of the 2 semifinal games between Michigan and Georgia, was never close, right? They lost by 23. They could have lost by 53. It was never close. They got a can of you-know-what opened on them. So there's that. But then if you look at all the other games, right, you had so many other great games. So those are the top 4. Let's look at 5 through 10. In 5 through 10, you had, I see my man Andre Owens here. He said, "Go Poke." Shout out to Andre Owens. I owe you those push-ups, my brother, because you know Oklahoma State did beat Notre Dame in a heartbreaker. But I digress. To just finish this thought, number 5 plays number 9. Notre Dame plays Oklahoma State in the Fiesta Bowl. Great game. Oklahoma State breaks all kind of records, comes back and wins that game in the Fiesta Bowl. The number 6 team, Baylor, played Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. Another great game. And unfortunately, Ole Miss, their quarterback got hurt. He decided to play, which is going to link us to the second part of this conversation versus opting out. He got hurt, and Baylor wins that game. It was a great game, though. Number 7, Ohio State plays number 10, Utah, in the Rose Bowl. Another great game. Ohio State comes back in a legendary comeback. The Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. Great freaking game. In a sense, we sort of had parity in 5 through 10. We had parity. Those were all great games. All great bowl games. Right? And in the college football playoffs, we didn't have any parity. Both lopsided games. Is that statement, which is a factual statement, that's not an opinion, that's not subjective, that's an objective statement, that all those were great games, the Fiesta, the Sugar, and the Rose Bowl versus 2 very lopsided games in the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl, the semifinals. Does that statement mean we should expand the number of teams in the playoffs? Or does that mean that they already got it right? Because the top 2 teams, Alabama and Georgia, are head and shoulders better than everybody else. And it's been that way, whether it's been Alabama, Clemson, whether it's been LSU, Alabama. Alabama seems to be a reoccurring theme here. Whether it's Ohio State and Alabama, right? The top 2 teams have been head and shoulders above everybody else over the last several seasons. Does that mean we have it right or wrong? Do we need to expand the playoffs, or do we have it right?
I think we need to expand. I think another game that you didn't mention was Michigan State versus Pitt.
Yep, Michigan State.
That was a great game.
Another great game. 21-10, I think, was the final in the – I don't know what bowl that was.
I thought it was a comeback win with a last-minute touchdown to win it, but I could be wrong.
I think it was 21-10. But it was a great game. And now the Pittsburgh quarterback didn't play. So that game also had 31-21. Michigan
and I
State.
think 31-20. Yeah, I thought that was closer. So I think it was we answered 2 questions. First of all, you put that game in the mix. Let's just assume that that's the way the matchups are. You give the first 4 teams a bye, right? So you're giving Alabama, you're giving Clemson, whatever the winner, probably the Michigan State game and whatever it is. You got Cincinnati and
so how many teams you have in it? How many teams total?
I think that makes 12 teams, right? So we had the 3 bowl games.
Got it.
So 8, 10, 12 team playoff, right? You give the first 4 teams a bye. Those 4 bowl games that you just discussed, which were very competitive, are the play-in games to get against whatever. So you get to Cincinnati, Michigan, whatever. I bet there's going to be a real competitive game in there. You'll see that. Yes, the top 2 teams will probably have dominated their games that they have to go play. But you're putting in extra games that they have to go play to prepare and different things you have to deal with. So a couple things that get helped here. One, everyone's mad about the opt-outs, right? The Pitt quarterback doesn't opt out if he has a chance at the playoffs. Notre Dame safety and running back don't opt out if they have a chance at the playoffs. So you start looking at some of these games that maybe had a different outcome had people not opted out, because now they have a chance and opportunity to play. Everybody's happy here, right? Yeah, the bowl games that are beyond that, you're going to get opt-outs. But you know what? I've said it many times before, you could just put the younger players on the field, and they're still exciting games because now you get to see what the future lies. But those games switch focus. But you don't have the opt-outs here because people are playing for something. And now these dominant teams have to win extra games. And, you know, we all know in football there's an opportunity for an off week. Anything can happen during the game. You got to focus for one game, and then the championship, the dominant team usually comes by and they win. But I think if you had to put an extra game in there for the playoffs, because that would still require an extra third. That would add that put a second game for the top.
You're adding basically 4 games. If the champion would have to play it, the way that you put it, because I was just trying to do the math. I don't think it works mathematically, but I get where you're coming from. Instead of the top 4, I think it would have to be the top 2 that get the bye. But I get where you're coming from.
No, because if you had the 4 bowl games would produce 4 winners, and then they would play the top 4 people that had the bye.
Right.
8, got it. Yeah,
and
so
then they would play winners. They play the 4 team with the bye, and then that would go to 2 teams.
But then you have 3 rounds. But then you have 3 rounds.
That's 3 rounds. You added 3 games though.
So there's basically 4 rounds of playoffs at that point.
Boom.
You added 3 games to the current system.
Yeah.
To determine a champion.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of games, Big Flo.
Yeah,
every other level does it. Do you think it's harder because you're playing Power 5 football than the 1AA? Look, they got like 64 teams in it.
I would have disagreed with
Division 3. They got like 64 teams to play.
I would have disagreed with you vehemently prior to this season, when I was still under this misconception that the college sports world was still full of amateurs that were there being student athletes that were progressing to either a professional career in something other than sports or a professional career in sports. Mm-hmm. Now, based on the second half of our conversation, they are professional athletes. They're professional athletes now. So I'm a little more open to it now because it comes with the territory. If you can, like Caleb Williams, demand a certain paycheck in order to pay, that comes with different expectations. ETP, do you think they have it right now, or should it be an expansion before we get into? Because I definitely want to get into the other part before we get out of here. So your quick and dirty answer: do you think they have it right, or does that fact that you have 2 lopsided semifinal games and you had 4 bowl games that were numbers 5 through 12 that were great games, does that suggest they have it right, or did they have it wrong?
I think the way that it is, I think is the right way to go. It doesn't mean it's good, but it's, I think, the best scenario. I don't want to see Alabama beat up on the 12th seed, whatever team, and then have to wait 3 more weeks for a national championship. Like, I don't think that it's open enough, but at the same time, if you open it up more, it's going to take longer. It's usually a question of if it's 1, 2, or maybe in a crazy season, there's 3 arguable champions. But in reality, I think expanding it isn't going to change the debate. It's just going to make it a little bit more confusing. But everybody likes playoffs, so I think it's a good concept. But then what does that do to the rest of the bowl games? Like, all the other bowl games have even less value.
So who cares about their value? But let me ask you this question though, E. Right now, if you're coming into college and you think you want to win a national championship, right? There's like 5 schools that you can think of that you maybe could go to try to make the playoffs, right? Alabama, I still got to leave Clemson still in there. Ohio State, maybe a Georgia, Notre Dame, that you can get a realistic chance to get into the playoffs, right? And beyond that, most people like Michigan got in the playoffs. This is a fluke. Cincinnati was a fluke, but it kind of helped, whatever. Do you think so? Now you get a collection of talent of people feeling like, okay, I got to go to Bama because that's the only way I can guarantee myself to make these playoffs. I got to go to Clemson. I got to go to Georgia. I got to go to Ohio State. Do you think if you expand this to 12 teams now, because I got this conversation with my son. He's like, man, if they go to 12, but Dad, I think we got a shot. We get up in this thing. Not to say they can't possibly make the top 4, but it's a lot more far-fetched. But he's like, 12, hey, we go to Big Ten championship game. You know, we win that game where we have a good showing. We get a chance to get in here. You know, you start looking at it that way. Do other players start to trickle down the line? Maybe we don't have the stockpile at the top that we have if we're 12 teams that can make the playoffs to get a legitimate run.
See, I don't think that's why but I don't think that's why they go there, Big Flo. I don't think they're looking at it. You and I, as fans and now media types, we acknowledge that the list of names that you gave are absolutely year in and year out, the most likely, give you the most likely chance to at least be in the playoffs, right? But I don't think that's why they're going there. I think they're going to Alabama because everybody that's ever started on the defensive line of Alabama has gone to the league.
Yeah.
They're going there for the NFL prospects, not the championship on the collegiate level prospects. That just happens to be sort of this unintended benefit of being in position to go to the next level. And I say that because of two things. And here's where we'll end the show. The opt-outs suggested now there's a professional football focus. And if you don't mind, ETP, because we're down to about a few minutes, man. But if you don't mind, and the second thing is the transfer portal. If you don't mind, let's play that clip. This is Kirk Herbstreit and what I like to call Kirk Nerd Street, only because he went to Ohio State and I don't like a lot of his takes. And Desmond Howard, who I like to call Lil Desmond, only because he went to Michigan and I don't like his takes. But they are talking about opt-outs and its impact on the bowl game, the bowl mania season. Roll clip.
Money, the amount of money, like what's the difference as a player in saying these games are meaningless when we played in quote unquote meaningless games? I mean, I know you guys were here a lot, but I just don't understand. If you don't make it to the playoff, how is it meaningless to play football and compete? Isn't that what we do as football players? We compete. So I don't know if changing and expanding it is going to change anything. I really don't. I think this era of player just doesn't love football.
That's what I was about to say. We're dealing with a total different mentality when we're dealing with these student athletes nowadays, especially the football players. I mean, their whole mentality right now is about the championship, the playoff. We got to get into the CFB or the CFP. And because of that, they don't value the bowl games. Now, when we were coming up, Herbstreit and myself, like to go to a bowl game was a huge reward for a fantastic season. That's what it meant. It's like, okay, your team played this well, so you're going to be rewarded.
We're having spotty Wi-Fi issues.
It's a prepaid. Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what they're saying is, you know, it used to be a big deal to go to
the bowl game. You're going to get a ring. You're going to get swag. Now, kids don't really care about that. They have a sense of entitlement. And it's like, if we're not going to the one that matters, then, you know, it just doesn't have as much value to them as it did us growing up.
He goes on to say, the apologies for the technical difficulties. He goes on to say that the players are entitled. They've got a sense of entitlement. So the two takes out of that, hot takes are Kirk Herbstreit basically says that this era player doesn't love football. The other hot take is Desmond Howard doubled down on it and says, you know, these players feel entitled. Enter 2022 when we see that the abnormal has become the normal and the transfer portal. I don't know if you got that stat either. Like over 1,400 players are in the transfer portal. Enter 2022 when the opt-out has become the norm. And, you know, I don't love the opt-out, but I understand it, especially when you watch Ole Miss quarterback Matt Carroll go down in what appears to be a lower leg injury, and I've not followed to see how significant the injury is in a bowl game. You understand the opt-out. So long and short of it is, like, are they right? Is Kirk Herbstreit right? Does that mean that this era of football player doesn't love the game? Is Desmond Howard right?
I think they don't love being an amateur when they have an opportunity to be a pro. Like that's the statement. The statement is you are not paying, you are not compensating. there is an opportunity to make a lot of money on the exit of this experience. I'm going to go do that. There's no reason for me to compromise my future for something today, especially when there's no incentive to do so.
Right. Here's my challenge, my biggest challenge with Kirk Herbstreit. I think he's walked it back a little bit. He and Desmond Howard walked it back a little bit. So we got to give them at least acknowledge that they've walked it back a little bit. But my issue with Kirk Herbstreit is this era of player doesn't love football. Are you crazy? Here's my thing. This era of football player, because of the multi-million, if not billion-dollar industry that has become training and if you think of how much bigger and comprehensive it is to become a football player or an elite basketball player now, you're training year round, you're going to camps, you're doing the 7-on-7, you're doing all of these things that as a young person, I gotta admit, I didn't do that. I showed up, I worked hard, I went to the weight room, but it wasn't on a world tour trying to be more elite than the person next to me. If you're doing all that and making those sacrifices, there has to be a certain love. You can't be doing it just for the love of money. You're doing it for the love of the game. You're doing it for the love of the journey. And so I have an issue with Kirk Herbstreit's statement. And I know that I come across sounding very old a lot of times when I judge what players are doing, but I wouldn't call this era of football player any less in love with the game than we were, because you got to be in love with the game to make the sacrifices necessary to succeed.
They understand the business aspect of it now better than we did. We were honored to be there because we didn't have all this understanding of our value. I mean, we had an idea, but for the most part, we didn't understand our value the same way they do now. These kids are taking control of the sport, that they are the main product and the main thing. And they realize that, yeah, I would love to go play in this game, but at the same time, I have an opportunity to make money and change my life. Who am I playing this game for? For the coach to keep his job? For the fans that boo me every time something bad goes? No. So they're doing the smart thing. And it bothers Kirk Herbstreit because in his business, he's trying to sit here and talk about a game, and he can't talk about it that way. So, to hell with anybody who has criticized somebody. You got to live your life and do what you got to do. But I do think that if the playoffs got expanded, now they add more meaning to more games, and there's more people who are going to give it a chance to try to play. But miss me with that. They don't love football business. They just understand that their body is got limited snaps in it, and they don't want to waste the snaps on something that's not going to help them do it. And the NFL, their future employers, love the fact that these guys are opting out. And the fact that these guys get hurt, nobody cared about Jalen Smith when he hurt his leg. No one. I mean, luckily the Cowboys took a chance on him. This quarterback that just got hurt again, nobody's doing anything. This university's not doing anything. They're not stepping up and saying, we'll buy you an insurance policy to make sure that if you get hurt in this game that you get paid. No one's doing that. Now we're just trying to play on their emotions and say, oh, they should just play for the love of the game and just challenge them. Miss me with that.
Or look, I'll tell you another. If you want to come up with a creative business idea, NCAA or institution that's complaining about a player opting out, how about you allow players to opt in based on some business contractual relationship? Let me get a certain percentage of the TV revenue. Let me get a certain percentage of, whatever, the merchandise that you sell, right? Give me a financial reason to make that choice over the other financial reason that suggests that I shouldn't play, that makes it too risky to play. And, I agree with you, Big Flo, that the window, the veil has been lifted, and these players understand the finances of the game such that they just are equipped with more information. The transfer portal, go ahead, ETP. Sound like you want to like you want to weigh in.
No, I think the only way that statement is valid is if you have all these opt-outs on these bowl games who are going to say, I'm going to start my accounting career early because I'm no longer in love with the game of football. Like, I'm not stopping playing football. I'm stopped playing football for free. I'm a corporation and I need to protect my investment, and I'm going to go play and perform and be compensated for it. Like, it's that simple. It's like we talk about, we had on the show, we had a segment months ago. Lamar Jackson spent 5 minutes on a basketball court playing defense and running, like playing off, how to camp with kids. And he's throwing passes and playing defense. And we're like, oh my God, he's a $40 million athlete every year. Don't put him in bubble wrap. These guys, like, it's a full game, 100 snaps. And we're yelling at them.
Sponsorships to give those people's opt-ins money. I mean, they have the thrifty the Thrifty Bowl. Thrifty needs to kick back a couple ends to these people. If you want me to play in the game, kick off a few ends. I'll play in this game.
That's a really good point. That's a really good
There,
point.
there are business ways to overcome this. We'll go home with this, man. Transfer portal, because you talked about it, the same fans that boo you, right? Spencer Rattler was the biggest thing on Oklahoma's campus until he wasn't. So if Spencer Rattler or anybody else, in this case, and this makes the connection, it helps us navigate from opt-outs to transfer portal. Anyone else, in this case, Caleb Williams, decide to test the market. Caleb Williams putting his name in the transfer portal and publicly saying he very well might not transfer from Oklahoma, but he just wants to see what's out there, I think was a start of a whole new conversation. And then what goes and happens, Charlie Batch, the company that is his company, offers him $1 million to go play for Eastern Michigan University. And so are we at the point where it is no longer, let's stop calling it transfer portal. It's free agency. That's free agency. If you're going to put your name in a transfer portal in order to test the market, and you say that publicly, and lo and behold, now you've got another public statement that says, hey, man, for $1 million, you should go to Eastern Michigan. Is this free agency?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And careful what you wish for. For every success story like this Caleb guy that's going to go out there, there's going to be that kid in free agency that just gets cut, put on waivers, and they don't want to do it. And the education is that we work so hard to try to make that important in these schools is about to just drop off. So
Spencer Rattler, his predecessor is the starting quarterback of Oklahoma now. Imagine him testing the free agency market now, where his value was at the beginning of the season versus where it is after you heard the entire crowd in Norman, Oklahoma call for Caleb Williams. Caleb comes in and outperforms him. So imagine what that graph looks like, where his free agency value was to where it is now. We're seeing it. Is it free agency, ETP, before we get out of here? And is free agency a good thing, considering all the other things that we discussed today? And then I know we got to get on out of here.
Yeah, it's a commercial. The elements of corporate operations is slowly penetrating the amateur sport, which has been a commercial sport for many years. Now we're starting to see these things bubble up.
I interrupt you because you and I are going to take it home in this last one. We'll have the spirited discussion.
My
man, Big Flow Show, man. Thanks for all the contributions, my brother. Happy 2022. See you next week.
Love
all right, my brother. So here we are, and you and I went to business school at the same time. You and I have argued from business principles about whether or not free agency on the collegiate level makes sense. You and I have argued whether or not name, image, and likeness is the appropriate way to address the elephant in the room, that you have people that are misnamed amateurs that are truly professionals. You and I have had several of these business-related conversations when it comes to sports on the collegiate level. But when I look at Caleb Williams putting his name into the transfer portal and publicly saying he's doing so just to test the market, and no one frowns upon it, including the entire Oklahoma Sooners football family, they have put their own sort of spin together and trying to induce him to stay. I'm left with thinking that we have arrived at a moment where I never thought we'd be. But this is free agency.
Yeah, the crazy thing about it is it's very much cart before the horse. There's free, like, the model has opened up the opportunity for a free agency landscape before we're talking about compensation by these teams or universities to the players. So there's not even a contract. Like, we don't even have a situation where they're engaged. Like the transfer portal, there's free agency where now you can offer a 4-year scholarship, but all right, after a year, I'm only going to stay 3 years. I might not play the third. I know I'm going to the league. If the first year doesn't pan out, I'm in the portal. See if, I'll go through the whole recruiting process again, get $1 million offers, try to up my NIL, my name, image, and likeness opportunities, and become part of the news cycle. And then the next year I'm going to go somewhere else. And then the year after that, I'm gone. So the universities, the NCAA is kind of, it's like they're chasing the apple cart at this point and trying to figure out, other than the media deal, you have no control.
Right.
And now like the media, like if they lose any control of the media side of it, then the whole thing just becomes a professional, it's individuals running a professional organization.
This question I left on the screen. Appreciate you, Juan William Jackson. What's up, good dog? My good brother. How about guarantee these young men 4-year scholarship? Today, only 2 universities do that: University of South Carolina, and I can't remember the other one. So what he's saying is, when you sign your contract with the school, which is basically guaranteeing that you're going to get X amount in scholarship money, and it articulates what you're doing on an annual basis. You have to sign that every year. I would argue that Caleb Williams and the transfer portal, being as robust as it is full right now. Right, the latest number was that if you just took the players from the transfer portal, you had enough players in the transfer portal to field offense and defense for 56 teams. It's a lot of kids.
Yeah,
I would argue that if we're going in that direction, and Caleb Williams, if this is the test of whether or not free agency can survive and thrive on a collegiate level, I would argue that the players don't want 4-year scholarships. I would argue that the most value is the way it is now on an annual basis. Like you said, let's test the market on an annual basis. Until the universities step up and become the main payor, the main source of compensation, and stop punting to a third-party source through this name, image, and likeness sham. Not sham, but name, image, and likeness was a red herring. It allowed you to ignore the fact that name any school that we just discussed in the college football playoffs, name any school in a Power 5 conference. It allowed us to ignore the reality that despite the millions that the universities, these institutions are raking in because of football and basketball, despite the millions, that university does not have to share a single cent with the players that help them produce that money. That to me was name, image, and likeness. It was a big red herring. Now free agency, I think, says, all right, institution, if you're not going to pay me, I'm going to find the most lucrative opportunity that allows me the prospects to get paid in other ways. That's free agency. That's free agency.
Yeah, and it's a college football has probably the most devoted local fan bases, right? Like you have these generational fan bases. And so the idea that I think it's kind of taken for granted how quickly this all could dissolve, right? So you have these opt-outs, you have players jumping around to different teams. Like it'll be interesting to see like how much are we chipping at the tradition of college football by avoiding the commercialization for the talent, right? Like because there is this consistent like deficiency of compensating the talent, it has become this very fragmented reality. And so the traditions are going away. The players are opting out because they can go get the payday. The schools, the schools are jumping conferences. Like the tradition of college football is potentially going to be a thing of the past completely in 10 years.
It's why, and people talked about Notre Dame and saying the mystique and the tradition, that's not as powerful as it was in recruiting as it used to be. And I agree with that. You got to do other things. Notre Dame has stepped up in facilities. They stepped up, and I think they hired a young brother for not only his ability to coach, but also his impact on recruiting. So I think from a Notre Dame standpoint, they had to address it. But I agree with you that it's going to be much broader than that. Because if the tradition of college football is under siege, then the value escapes with that. I would argue that even on the collegiate level, like we've all become, sports has become basically, does art imitate life? Does life imitate art? It has become a big, huge fantasy sports world. I just move, I'm done with you. All right, I'm gonna move over to this team. And I don't know who's driving it.
Coaches included.
Coaches included, right?
Coaches opting out of bowl games.
Because of the early signing period, and that's what my challenge was with Kirk Herbstreit and Desmond Howard's take, is that it completely ignored how how coaches are moving from place to place, and they've got to leave early because of the early signing period. They've got self-interested reasons for not finishing the journey with their team that are business related. So don't get mad at the players for making that. But I think it's all become just we're fantasy. We're a fantasy world. The concept of fantasy sports has become a reality. That's why Spencer Ratliff's like, all right, ain't working out here, let's go. And my outdated, antiquated way of thinking, fighting through challenging times and overcoming the next best prospect that's threatening your starting job, I'm antiquated because in my world, in my mind, in my reality, I feel as though the lessons that I took from football have helped me. I absolutely know they've helped me. But the truth of the matter is if free agency, what we've described in college sports as free agency, would have existed during my day, my nest egg would have been a little bit bigger. I would have started off in a different position. The decisions that I made in terms of my career might have been different because you're starting with a lot more money. You're starting with a lot more options. And so this is the new world that we're in, man. I think it's become fantasy. And this episode of Full Circle, I think we've come full circle. We're at a crossroads when it comes to what college sports will be, what it can be. The transfer portal has taken a lot of our attention and our time and our discussion and our analysis. I think there's some good and the bad there. I think the leverage of the players is clear. But what stories you don't hear about is the leverage of the institutions is clear too. Some people in that transfer portal, not because they want to be, not because of their freedom and their autonomy. It's because a coach pulled them to the side and say, hey, what you think about that transfer portal? Suggesting, if not absolutely demanding, that it's time to move on. So this has been the Full Circle episode. My man, ETP Ellis, the producer, my man, the Big Flow Show, they both came and delivered like they always do. Rough, rugged, and raw. Sports, business, and entertainment. Thank you for joining us on the first Friday of 2022. You guys be safe. I got to go finish my shoveling here in New Jersey, New York area. We got dumped a few inches, so I got to go take care of that. This has been a great show. It's your boy, B. Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, a.k.a. Mr. Excessive Celebration, a.k.a. Breezy. Enjoy the playoffs because that's essentially what we have in the 17th game in the NFL and jockeying for position in the playoffs. Whatever your team is, hopefully you enjoyed this weekend of sports. And with that, we is out. Peace.